Hello and welcome to Walking the Earth podcast, where we explore the travel lifestyle. You can find us online at WTEpodcast.com. I'm Mike Margulies, and today I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and I'm joined by Sam Apichom. How's it going, Sam?
Oh, pretty good.
And so Sam actually, so you're Thai,
I'm Thai.
but you spent decades of your life as an expat in the U.S.
That's right.
And actually, the way we met here was you're retired now, and you've returned back to Thailand, and you actually posted on Facebook, "Hey, I'm offering basically free tutoring to anyone who's interested." And so I kind of like jumped on the opportunity.
Tutoring on the Thai language.
Yeah, tutoring on Thai language,
Yeah,
yes. And I kind of jumped at the opportunity because I've been wanting to learn a little bit more Thai myself.
Right.
Oh yeah, if someone offers free tutoring, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go
You
for it.
backpackers.
Yeah, man, and it's been great because I've been meeting up with you a few times. We met at like at cafes and helping me learn a little bit more of Thai.
Have you learned some though, really?
Nit Noi.
Okay, very good, very
Yeah,
good.
actually, no, I've learned a lot from.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you could have got some kind of idea what this language is about. I mean, or some basic idea about.
Yeah, I
How?
definitely have a lot more to go.
Right.
I'm far from. I'd say I'm very far.
Conversational.
Yeah,
right.
I'm still
So-
far from like being fluent in Thai, but I know a lot more than I used to know,
Right,
and so long ways to go. And I think actually, I'm going back to the States in like a week, but I'm planning still at this point. I think my plan A is to come back to Chiang Mai and take proper, like a class,
Right.
and I'll still probably maybe lean on you a little bit to help tutor me
Sure.
if you're still game for it.
Well, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Is to tutor, to actually supplement the more structured classes. So
Yeah.
I'm here to just.
I certainly appreciate it, man.
Oh,
Yeah, I guess like when you explained it, you kind of when you explained to me why you're doing this, you were saying how you saw these these foreigners here that were supposedly speaking Thai, but the language that's coming out of their mouth wasn't really what you would call Thai.
Right. Really strange, stilted translation.
Right.
From English or whatever, So.
Yeah, and I'm sure mine still is pretty stilted, but it's come a ways, I think. Yeah, I found that like a little bit. It's been helpful, but actually, what I wanted to actually really get learn from you on for the this podcast is like
Right.
for you as a Thai person living abroad, as an expat in the United States, I was hoping to maybe get a little bit more insight into like what that experience was like for you. Living in the
Wow.
U.S.
Wow. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, it's remained, it had remained adventurous all the way to the end, and I say it mainly because United States is such a huge country,
Right.
and I really savored at moving from one state to another, partaking the great sense of place of each state, its history, its geography, its people, its everything. I just loved every minute of it. United States is like a continent. You look at it; it spans from one ocean to another, from
Massive.
Atlantic to Pacific, and it's how many time zones does it have? And
4 time zones.
yeah. Well, I mean, Thailand,
not including Hawaii.
Yeah, I mean, the size of Thailand is only like one state.
Right,
Like
right.
size of California, Texas, or whatever. So each state has its own, history, its own everything. I mean, that to me, I as a third person, my perspective was like that. Was how interesting. Wow, just look.
So you found it did you find it to be pretty diverse?
Pretty diverse, but here's the thing about it. I wouldn't say diverse, but I would say that because of my personal interest in history and geography, it really drove my sense of adventure, throughout my years, and so I would move from practically Appalachia all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, you were living all over the place, right? Denver, LA, Tucson.
Starting out in the Appalachia, Kentucky and West Virginia.
Oh, in Kentucky and West Virginia.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was where I got my BA and MA.
Yeah.
So yeah, got my MA at Morehead State University in the northeastern part of Kentucky, which is in the hill part, the Appalachia part of it, and then got my MA from Marshall University. I mean, deeper into the hills of Appalachia. This is like cross the state line to West Virginia. So, right.
That's awesome, man.
I loved it though. I totally loved it.
And you were studying art conservation?
No, fine art.
Fine art. Okay.
That was, yeah.
Right. And then you got into art conservation.
I got into art conservation later. That was my own study, self-development. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all
applying what I learned some from the fine art education.
Nice. Yeah, so how did you find that experience, like working in art conservation?
It was wonderful because it was just like really my niche, because I loved the objects. Just totally really was happy to find.
So that's about trying to like preserve pieces that are important to history.
Right. The museum contents, most museum contents in the basement, were huge storage.
In most museums, in general.
It appeared that way to me because, many objects could not be exhibited because there was something wrong with them. Seemed to me, and so. And they would need to be rotated, for exhibition and then put back in the storage. All of that.
Okay. And so, like, when you say like you're working in art conservation, like what does that mean exactly? You're working to keep the stuff intact.
Well, conservation means that you keep it from changing, from reacting to the environment. Whether it's temperature, humidity, light, and all this kind of thing. So you want to keep them as as stable, as intact, as long as possible, you see. And some of them also are damaged. Some of them have damage which aesthetically is disruptive, you see. So it's not quite fully, good for exhibition. So that all of that have got to be so-called, restored, repaired, and then for exhibition.
And you were doing that basically like all around the country, not from Colorado to California.
Right. From
And so having been like all these different places, from the East Coast to the mountains to the West Coast, like, was there a particular place that you found like really spoke to you, or?
Every place was wonderful. I mean, from the Appalachian Hills to the Rockies, and then to the West Coast, and then finally to the southern desert of Arizona, in the Sonoran Desert, which is wonderful, another wonderful place also. So I think anything at all that drove my journey across America was its geography and history, totally,
So just like
just like a backpacker.
Yeah.
It was like that. I mean,
Yeah.
really, totally. It was not so much a career that drove me. Actually, to tell you the truth.
You were kind of like backpacking the U.S.
While
doing art conservation.
Absolutely. And where else? United States is one of the best places in the world to backpack, to see. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. It's like, I lived in the U.S. all of my life until, whatever it was, 15 months ago when I left. But I never really kind of, I wouldn't say I ever really backpacked the States though, I was kind of like, I was just always working in my jobs wherever, and I did move from like Washington, D.C. area to Houston, but I never felt like I, really explored. I mean, I've been around the States, for weekend trips and this kind of thing, but never really like maybe that's something I could take, about to go home. It's a little bit of exploring the U.S. on a different terms this time, you know?
Well, it would have to be your angle of interest.
Yeah.
Your own personal interest. What aspect of United States that you really like?
Right.
For me, because I was a foreigner. I was a foreigner. I had my totally a third person perspective.
Right.
View of the country. And I don't know. I can't see it through your mind's eye. Anything, So. Yeah, for me, it was really my intense personal interest in its, like I said, geography and the history and architecture and all of this and the people.
Yeah, so I guess for the people, like having, I guess you spent more years living in the U.S. than living in Thailand.
I have lived here. I have lived here only for 18 years.
Right, you moved to the States, when you're 18 years old.
77.
77.
Yeah, right.
And now just moving back here. And did you feel like a culture shock coming back to Thailand?
Yeah, well, it was really interesting. Is that I got here June 1st, and things look familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. How strange is that statement? So familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. And so I got to re-examine what I thought I knew.
Right.
And it was kind of like surreal in a way.
Yeah.
And nothing seemed real to me. Even though they seemed familiar to me, but they at the same time were not familiar.
Same but different.
Same but different. Yeah, exactly. That's really a good description.
The catchphrase.
Same but different.
The catchphrase of the region.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that. What you experienced, I guess, what you're still probably experiencing right now, because you only just got back a few months ago. I'll have like a taste of that. I wasn't gone. You've been gone for decades, living in the States and coming back. And for me, it's like I've only been 15 months, but I'm already kind of bracing myself for that experience of the culture shock.
I've heard of
coming
that
back
before.
home.
I've heard of that before because this is a very a different place.
Yeah.
Very. Would you call Thailand exotic?
Certain. It is from certain perspectives. Yeah. I mean, it's different.
Different
than the U.S. For sure. And I happen to. I obviously happen to really like it here. That's why I spent so much time here, and I'm learning the language and all this stuff because I really do enjoy the lifestyle. And for me, it's just nice. Thailand's really nice because it's very, particularly we're here in like Chiang Mai. It's like very sabai, very relaxed.
Really, wow.
I feel like in the States, it's just such more of like a everyone's kind of running around like a chicken with their head cut off, kind of, And here it's a nice kind of. I feel much more relaxed and.
You think folks are like programmed to or pressured to perform or something in the United States?
I think that's part of it. In the U.S., there is a lot of pressure that.
And certain values about what you should do and how you should be and all that kind of thing.
I certainly felt it. That there's a pressure when I was living in the States, like
that middle class thing.
Yeah, like to have a career of a certain stature. All this kind of thing. Like,
and your income bracket that you should be in.
Yeah, and it's kind of like people sort of size you up a little bit based on those things.
Oh my God.
Like you're at a bar and like one of the first questions is always kind of like, so what do you do?
Right.
And that thing is like, and granted, I was working as an engineer, so I had a good career, all this stuff, so I could. I could give people an answer that would they would like approve of, so to speak, right? But it still feels weird, that evaluation of someone based on like, oh, how much money. And it's not. I'm not saying everyone's like this in the States, but I did.
It's so common.
It's much more common.
It's so common.
Yeah.
And you feel like you have to perform.
Yes.
You feel like you have to be really in a solid middle class.
Yeah.
And all that, education and job and career and all of that kind of thing. Even in 2014, people still do that.
Yeah, you're very much so evaluated on that. And that's one of the things. Like when I go home too, it's kind of like
when you're gonna get married and you're gonna have kids and all that kind of thing. When you're gonna start your family, right.
I you know what? I haven't had that question as much.
Good.
But I do get I don't know, I haven't been back yet, but I do kind of feel like I'll get home and it's going to be like, so what's your plan? you have to sort of like
then you have to answer it correctly,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
there are only a few answers that
I
would
have to
be
give the
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a plan. I just want to walk the earth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and truth be told, for me, it's like
And they wouldn't know how to react to that either, right? They would say, "Oh, well, that sounds interesting," or
right.
something.
Yeah, exactly. They go, okay, that's nice. Right?
And then they would shut up from there on, right?
Yeah, I think I don't want to prejudge what's going to happen to me when I get home, but
Right.
yeah, to an extent, I am bracing for that sort of a thing. I think a lot of people will expect me after having been gone for 15 months to have an answer now. Like, okay, so now you went to go. Did you find yourself? What are you doing? What's your plan? What are you doing? And the truth is, I still don't exactly know what the thing is I want to spend. I don't know what my passion is yet. I'm still kind of on that journey.
That's your passion.
And that's
your
my
journey.
Yeah, maybe that is my passion. Is the journey.
Maybe, yeah.
I think for me, it'll be like it's really just a matter of being content with that myself, like with where I am, versus having to worry about that pressure. Like whether or not there is that external pressure, it's on me to decide whether I need to subscribe to it.
I've run into so many young people like you, and I think it's a new set of values altogether. And not only the American, but the Western European. Globally, people are changing, especially the 20s and 30s. People in the 20s and 30s are, from Argentina, Brazil, from Chile, from Germany, from Australia, from United States. All of this, you're having about the same values in the earth. I don't think the earth has never been as globalized as now. I mean, it's so globalized in terms of people coming to see one another, to know one another. I mean, on first-hand basis,
right?
Not on like a tourist, organized tourist trap type thing. Like the old thing, the old style tourism and all of this kind of thing. You actually come here and to join in the traditional world, traditional cultures of various places, all of that, and to see other people as like you, just on a more or less like equal basis.
Yeah, as kin and
yeah.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. Like what you would call traditional tourism. You just go and see the sights. You go and I saw the Eiffel Tower. I saw the Taj Mahal. Take a picture in front of it. Check off the box. That's a version. Some people do that version of travel still, but I think, for example, many backpackers, it's less about that, and it's more so about the relationships and being in a culture and and the little you can only learn so much from it.
Right.
Even months abroad is still a very limited time, but it's the experience. Definitely, I think is more geared towards trying to understand a different culture, a different way of life, experiencing a place versus seeing the things and checking the boxes. It's more meeting the people, and I think that's what it's about. Certainly.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I guess, and you certainly experienced a completely different culture living on the other side and living in the States.
I love driving the back roads of America.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that was my favorite. I would never go. Again, I avoid a lot of, destinations, so-called destinations.
Well, of course, there's nothing wrong with going and seeing destinations.
Yeah.
That's still a cool experience in itself, too. I'm not
gonna Right.
Yeah.
But, totally, I had a particular dislike for the tourist traps area.
Right.
You run into t-shirt shop and all of these things that were all formulated and everything.
Right.
So I try to avoid all of those places.
Yeah. So how would you describe? And we talked a little bit about this. American culture versus say Thai culture. But I'd like to hear maybe more on your angle on that. When you're living in the States versus coming back home, or to you, what are the biggest contrasts you see or similarities, I guess, between the American culture, Thai culture? What things stand out to you?
Wow, man, I mean, this is really hard to answer because I'm still quite mixed up, right? So let me see. The difference. I mean, obvious difference is that maybe it's the Theravadan culture here. I mean, the Thai people are more, like, it's really hard for me to answer this question. I'm
Okay.
probably somewhat confused.
What was the word used about the what culture?
Well, see, Thailand is a Theravadan Buddhist country.
Okay.
Theravadan is there are two sects in the main sects in Buddhism, denominations, whatever you call Theravadan and Mahayana.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah.
And so what's the difference between those two?
Well, I think that we look to the direct teaching of Lord Buddha, what you call the direct teaching of Lord Buddha, and we look at Lord Buddha as like historical person instead of any like divine or
Okay. Not a god, but just
not a god,
human
yeah,
who had
yeah,
good
yeah.
ideas.
Right. And so his direct teachings, we try to look to that and try to to derive values out of that. So I think Thailand values and culture is based on the Theravadan
Right.
Buddhist values. Okay.
In contrast to say like in the U.S., which is obviously not a Buddhist country, U.S. is, well, on paper is a country.
Judeo-Christian.
It's paper it's religious freedom, and it's
Right.
there's no religion associated with it, but in reality it is Judeo-Christian.
Very much so. I mean, the values and everything, people still live by those things, and whether they know or not, they do.
Well, even like look at the politics, right?
Absolutely.
So much of the politics is charged by religion, especially from the religious right in the U.S.
Right.
So much of it's charged by what people believe this is right based on like their interpretation of the Bible.
And that still astonishes me. About how the U.S. is still rather conservative when it comes to the people's religious belief. But what I'm talking about, the conservative people or the religious, part of the political spectrum in the United States. So as all of this progressive legislation and changes, like gay marriages and marijuana and all of this kind of thing, and then you still have people over here that still like, totally ultra biblical driven or whatever, so.
Yeah, that's you're right. There is a lot of contrast like that in the U.S. right between like and it tends to get broken down into the red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat thing.
Right.
Where on the one hand it is weird, right? You get a country that's legalizing weed everywhere, gay marriage is becoming much more and more supported everywhere. Things that are progressive. At the same time, you still have the traditional conservative people the extreme version of that, people who say bomb abortion clinics and all this stuff, but people that are like very say very homophobic or and there's and
racism seems to
well.
always be pretty much it's still like disguised in various forms and so on and so forth, and we
on paper everything's equal, but there is absolutely a lot of racial disparity still.
Well, sometimes you hear about certain things that shock you still. Pretty much, how could it be? But they do. But, So, but partly because the United States is a huge country and a huge population. That too. And it's so huge that people live so far apart, and that's like regionalism still exists in the United States pretty well. People from the South, the people from the New England, and then people from the West Coast, and all of this.
So would you think this is in contrast to Thailand?
Well, Thailand is much smaller.
Much
smaller.
So there's not as much. You don't think there's as much as big of a gap, let's say, in ideology within Thailand? Like in the US, we're talking about red and blue and all this stuff.
You're right.
You think people are closer, maybe, in belief systems within Thailand?
Right. I mean, on the cultural thing.
On the culture.
Cultural thing. Let's not delve into this political division that we have, rather severely here. I've had, but
You think you think within the U.S. there's a bigger, say, a larger diversity of cultural range versus in Thailand?
Well, I don't know what you would call diversity in the United States. You're talking about the traditional values versus the more progressive value, mainly, And I would say that the progressive one is actually driven by the demographic change. You see what I'm saying? The public opinions and all of this kind of thing, or of your generation or younger people would find, gay issue is totally non-issue, and then, all of these kind of things. So why people are so surprised by the public opinion? Because of course these are by the people who really grew up with much less baggages about things, and have found it totally okay to be living with all of these things that used to be like such a threat to generations before. You know.
That's interesting perspective. The new generation, I guess the millennials is the label that's been put on it. Because the millennials grow up and it's like, wait, why is gay marriage an issue? Like, why is this?
They don't relate to that at all, right?
Like, why are we?
Well, they have friends that are Black, Asian, and Latino, and they have friends that are queer, and all of these things, lesbian and everything, and then they just have this direct, multicultural, multi. Orientations and all of these kind of things, and they are not convinced whether there's any problem because that is their own personal experience.
So I guess it sounds like, your observation, and I would agree with this, is that like there's a big generational gap in the U.S. between like the older generation and the younger generation. Right. That's interesting perspective. I would agree with that. I think there's definitely. And maybe that's something that's true throughout time. Is that always the younger generation that's leading a change, of course, because they don't have the same baggage, like you said. That's interesting. Now, in Thailand, do you think there's something similar? Like
absolutely. Thailand is a different country too, because we have like a traditional institution like the monarchy, and also monarchy. Pretty much has been quite a big deal in the Thai psyche.
Right.
Okay. So it's been like
it's very important. You have the pictures of the king everywhere.
And but however, it's almost like a forbidden subject here to talk about
exactly.
And all I can say is that it's been rather a very, very important factor in modern Thai politics. And His Majesty also is, I will not say much about it, but he's in his 80s,
right?
So it's maybe signaling a change of an era, and this is the reality of
and I think there, like you said, in Thailand, there's that extra sensitivity, right? Because it's not
extra sensitivity.
It's not a topic that, like, unlike the U.S., where we have, which is something I enjoy about the U.S. is I do get to I have a large degree of freedom of speech, right?
Absolutely.
I can talk about anything.
Absolutely.
Versus here in Thailand, there is more restrictions. So
absolutely.
We can't freely talk about all the aspects of this issue.
Absolutely.
And that's definitely.
It takes on a really religious proportion here. To offend or to appear to offend the monarchy is like blasphemy to a very religious icon in a very religious country. All that kind of thing. Yeah. So that's the degree of thing.
That is a very big.
Meanwhile, the progressive force in this society that has been driving it has been giving its own perspective as a nation in the world. That would be the younger people, that demographic that think and the things and feels differently than their parents. So
so we have that still.
Oh yeah, the same thing. The same thing is unstoppable. It's just a natural progression of time and the world going along with the world.
That's I guess maybe that's a constant you have across the world, right? Is the younger generation kind of leads a more progressive sort of movement, this kind of thing.
Of course, a young generation are full of energy, and especially those countries that have a substantial percentage of up and coming, younger generation. Yeah.
Another thing that's interesting in Thailand, and maybe you've thought on this. Like, there's a very big. I think there's a very big diversity in terms of like the way people live. If you look at someone who's living in Bangkok, and they're living a lifestyle maybe similar to someone living in a big city in the U.S., right? The career, it's a central thing.
Income.
Yeah, income.
Lifestyle.
The lifestyle, very
everything.
similar. Versus like, say, a rice farmer somewhere, and they live a complete contrast. Like
the huge gap. I mean, the whole spectrum. The whole thing. From the very first world to the very third world.
Yeah.
How you would call that. And and the economy also is huge. I mean, it's like the range of economy.
And certainly within the U.S., there are classes, right? There's rich and there's poor.
Yeah.
But I think the distance is maybe a lot bigger in Thailand.
A lot bigger.
It's just
a
massive.
lot bigger.
It's really astounding when you look at it. It's a completely different world.
It is.
Bangkok
it
versus living in a rural area.
Absolutely, absolutely. The front end of it is world class riches. In the dollar term. Okay, and the poorest one live on the minimum. What's the minimum income?
The minimum
wage
in the U.S.
Thailand.
Oh, in Thailand.
300 baht. 300 baht. So that's about $8 to $9. All right, $8 to $9 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
right.
There is certainly a very big disparity in classes in Thailand.
Right.
And it's it's just, and that's something that's striking to me coming out to this region is like, I realize, there is disparity in the U.S., but it's like, wow, but the scale of it is just...
But as you look around in Thailand, one thing is that first of all, it's an agricultural based economy. And then, of course, it has diverse economy, which is based on agriculture, but based on, exporting and industry as well. And then, as you see that it's rather under-regulated. It's not like in the United States. Over here, you have like informal economy everywhere. You see people selling everything everywhere, food and small merchants. You push carts and everywhere.
It's a lot less organized. Yeah,
a lot
in the US, it's so regulated and organized. Everything.
So over here, you're allowed to feed your family.
Right,
I mean, selling food, selling flowers, selling whatever. I mean, so it. That one thing I'm happy about.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot more people can just kind of they can start their business. There's a lot less barriers to starting a business.
Well, there's great wonderful sense of freedom there, and also that wonderful sense of self. It gives you the sense of self determination. Where you can really do what you can to support yourself instead of relying. Well, I mean, if you can't meet the regulation, can't get any license and everything in the United States, then you can't do it.
There's a whole process you have to go through.
Yeah. Over here, so much more.
And the litigation as well.
Right. And you can't help but thinking of actually the big business actually write the laws and the regulation and keeping all the competition.
Put some more barriers to entry, keep people. Yeah, no, that's certainly
over here, they're full of small merchants everywhere.
Oh yeah, everywhere you go. Like I mean, everyone's an entrepreneur, really. You walk around like the lady who runs the restaurant across the street. She's an entrepreneur. The lady who's selling flowers in the bar to the farang as an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And everyone kind of is an entrepreneur and kind of is part of it, the life. Whereas in the U.S., it would be hell. Like if you want to open a restaurant, let's say.
Oh God, you have to go through so many, offices.
Jump through this hoop. And
my God, the zoning, the health department, and the what else? I mean, the city, occupancy, certificate of occupancy, and all of these things. You have to be 60 feet from there, 80 feet from here, and all of this kind of thing. You have the right equipment and all of that. You have to get yourself tested for everything.
And I guess certainly for the consumer, there are some benefits that come with that. You get some, comfort and security. This has been certified. We know that the food is okay. All these things, but there's two sides to the whole thing,
Absolutely.
and there is certainly like a aspect of it that's like, oh man, why are there so many barriers to this?
I think that a major factor that makes Thailand kind of like interesting or kind of spectacular when you look out there, in the street, in the marketplace, and all of these things. It's a very lively, colorful, energetic places because of this kind of like open market type kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. I love walking through just walking through the night markets, you know,
Yeah.
like every time. Actually, I always end up getting like so much food when I walk through because I'm always like, oh, that's like only 20 baht, you know, it's like less than $1. I'll get some of that. But then I end up getting like 5 different things, you know, like so you just keep just boom, 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 boom. But I love it. It's like walking around, you know, trying the foods and seeing what's all the action is just, it is lively, you know, because everyone can, people just bring whatever they have. Different in Chiang Mai, there's so many artists here. Like you walk down the Sunday market and there's a guy, like I have this wallet that's got Jimi Hendrix painted
Oh my
on
God,
it.
I love it.
And I found this at the night market, you know, it's and it's just beautiful. It's this painted wallet of Jimi Hendrix's face, and there's things like this you'll find. Just like, hey, some guys,
you see
some artists make some business.
innovation in order to compete.
Yeah.
Individual innovation and creativity and everything. So I mean, in the US it would be like a certain brand name or whatever. It's totally coming out of manufacturers, you know.
Yeah.
These are all handmade.
No, it's nice. Certainly a wonderful place here. Are you happy to be back?
Well, I'm kind of mixed. You know, I miss the US as well. You know, it's really hard for me. I mean, there's a certain burden about being a Thai and coming back 40 years later to a place where you still have a lot of gripe about this country.
Right,
you know? So you're frustrated by how the society is still like from the top down type kind of structure. And so that is a frustration that I feel.
For sure. And we feel that in the US, but like we talked about, it's much bigger here, I think.
Absolutely. And the gap here, this is still a not necessarily democratic, you know, when it comes to the political structure, the governing structure and all that kind of thing. So but however, it hopefully it's on its way, you know. So again, it would take generational force, you know, energy that, you know, when you have enough a certain number of people who completely, you know, have different view altogether about how things ought to be done. So demographic shift. So.
Well, let me ask you one more question, and I'll let you go. What is one thing that you would like to do in your life before you die?
Oh Lord, I don't know. I have no idea. I just, you know, probably would like to travel more.
All right.
Travel more, you know, probably because I'm keeping myself really like, you know, what you call it? I mean, mobile. Yeah. Because I sold everything I own in the United States, homes and properties and all that kind of thing. So I have only one backpack and one luggage. That's it.
That's
so
same with me.
Yeah, I mean that's my most valuable asset right now is mobility. Mobility.
So you want to keep moving around.
I think I might want to do that.
Well, you've got actually a pretty interesting journey coming up.
Right.
Yeah. So you're about the journey to try to find. You're telling me earlier today your place of birth. Right. That's which is
right in the Prague province, east of here.
Okay.
But you know, my childhood memory is pretty sketchy.
Right.
You know, it was just like a memory of a 6-year-old child. Right. So we're trying to actually pinpoint the house where I was born in.
Oh. Yeah. That'll be a fun journey.
Right, and that town is very small to begin with. So,
Oh, that would be a cool journey. Yeah. Good luck in finding the house. Well, and thank you, man. This was a really cool conversation. And so thanks for sitting down with me and letting me record this conversation.
I enjoy it. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. And for everybody listening, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Walking the Earth podcast. You can find us online at WTEpodcast.com. I'm Mike here with my buddy Sam, signing off for now from Chiang Mai, Thailand. Thanks for listening.
Next time on Walking the Earth podcast, Mike and I sit in the same room and have a conversation. That's right, it's the reunion episode of Walking the Earth podcast. Check it out at WTEpodcast.com. Don't forget to get your free audiobook at audibletrial.com/WTEpodcast. And if If you have a chance, rate us on iTunes. Peace, doggy dog.